Good morning. Let me tell you a story of a girl I once came across. I will name her Ivy. Ivy was 14, but she was coming from a very poor background, just like most families in Malawi. And as per tradition, she was supposed to be married off to a man who was to provide for her basic needs and the family's needs. So she was married off to this man, 35. He owned a shop, and he made her life really miserable. So soon after getting married, she fell pregnant, and the husband was constantly and frequently beating her. But Ivy would not report this to the police, for then the police will have to arrest the husband, and she will have to lose her only source of income. Ivy is now 22, has 3 children, and is expecting the 4th. I would like you to imagine with me, what were you doing when you were 14? Probably going to school, spending some quality time with friends and family, and obviously not thinking of getting married or having babies. But unfortunately, Ivy's story is a story of 1 million girls around the world who are forced into child marriages because of lack of empowerment in their communities. My name is Memory Mbewe. I'm a child rights activist from Malawi, and this would have been my story too. But this morning, I will tell you how I turned out to be different. So I was born to a very, very young mother in a little district called Balaka in the southern part of Malawi. And I spent the early years of my life with my grandparents. But I was very privileged to have an aunt who lived far off in the city, and she would visit every once in a while. And somehow, her story on how she turned out to be different from everybody I knew fascinated me. And before long, she became my role model, my inspiration, and she showed me how it was possible to break away from what is traditionally expected of women and girls in my society. And she made me to believe in my dream and to pursue them no matter what. But that's not the case, that it's not an option for most girls in my community. About 10% of the girls, they are married before they get to 15. And 42%, which is more or less close to half, they are married before they get to 18. And the reasons are so many. We live in a society where 50% of the population lives in extreme poverty. So girls are married off in order to ease financial burdens on families. And sometimes they are married off to be offered a better future. I'm sure you can understand as a parent that you don't want to see your child starving to death. So it's an option for them. They had to make these decisions as parents. And we live in a society where girls are raised to be brides, and getting married on a part of a girl is an accomplishment. And there's lack of awareness. Most children and parents themselves, they do not know they have rights. And those that know they have rights, they have to make the tough decisions, as I've already talked about. And even for children who are forced into marriages, most of them do not know who to turn to or where to turn to for help. And we live in a society where customs and traditions have created myth to say that if you have reached puberty or if you have found yourself pregnant, then you are ready for marriage. And somehow, because there's lack of knowledge on sexual reproductive health, there are very, very high numbers of teen pregnancies, which eventually leads to child marriages. And these marriages rob so many of the rights of these children. Their right to education is taken away from them. Their right to good health. Their right just to be children and play. You know what I'm talking about. A happy child is fascinating to look at. But all that is taken away from them. And their right and their chance to become financially independent at some point in life is taken away from them. And most of them, their right to safety is also taken away from them. And like Ivy, they are exposed to gender-based violence. And for me, as an activist, what the saddest part about this whole thing is that most of these girls cannot consciously return back home to their parents because there's nothing to return to. So, about 3 years ago, while I was helping school kids with my fellow friends, we got in touch with a local TV and radio station so that we could cover more people on the work that we are doing. And while we were there at Timveni, I found myself learning how to be on air. And I was eventually invited to do a program called Hear Us Out, where I used the platform to bring the voices of children and youth to the masses and to advocate for the rights of children and youth of my country. And I used the platform to speak for people who cannot speak for themselves. It is fascinating because through this platform, almost every week, I get contacted by boys and girls in my community who have somehow faced one or two of the consequences of child marriages, possibly those that are struggling with childbirth complications, and girls that give birth to a lot of children because they would like to please their husband, and those that go to bed on an empty stomach because the husband has refused to provide for them. And of course, those that call within my show and say, if I knew of what you're talking about today before now, my life would have been different. So you can imagine, it's even sad for me. I believe that the only reason I found myself on the different side of the coin, or that my life turned out to be different, is because I had somebody to look up to, a role model, which most of these girls do not have, and somebody who believed in me and somehow offered me the opportunities that I needed as a girl to make it in life. But as I've already stated out, this is not an option for most girls and boys in my community. And so, as a child rights activist, I also engage with stakeholders and policymakers to find a way on how we can influence policy and somehow try to bring a change in the community. I am glad that there are positive changes that are coming through. Like now, we have children that are abandoning their marriages and returning to school. We have young mothers beginning support groups for themselves. We have victims now opening up to learn income-generating skills. We have women coming forward to report gender-based violence. And of course, we have children and young people knowing of their rights and responsibilities. And sometimes they send us advocacy materials so that we can use, these are things that they have been able to come up with from the skills and the talents that they have. So they send songs or poems, paintings, and etc., so that they can help in the fight to improve the lives of other young people. Despite all this, there's still a lot of work to be done on the ground. We have made progress, yes, but it is small progress. And I think all of you here can become a part of the progress that needs to be made. You can engage with local grassroots activists and support youth-led initiatives like the one I'm doing. Join hands with organizations like Plan International that supports youth-led initiatives like mine to reach out to these boys and girls to make sure that you help to break the cycle. And in this way, you will be able to provide alternatives for these girls. Because as you have heard from my saying, most of these girls, they do not have alternatives. So by you joining in hands, you'll be able to provide alternatives for them to say, don't marry young, but at least do this. And I believe my country needs a lot of girls to grow up to be women like my aunt, who know that they have rights to choose who to marry and when to marry, how many number of children, to know that they have a chance to be financially independent, and to know that they can influence the next generation. They have a right, they have a chance to influence the next generation. And personally, I look forward to the day where women and girls in my community have a chance to exercise their freedom and to live their rights. And just like my aunt inspired me to be who I am today, I look forward to inspire the next generation of women in my country. Thank you.